My name is Leilani, and I am a secondary education history student at the College of Charleston. Today, we will be exploring challenges when developing disciplinary literacies in history. As explained in Teaching Historical Reading and Writing with the Library of Congress, the primary objective of historical literacy instruction is to develop the ability to read and use the complex texts of the 21st century. Some strategies historians use when working with evidence include sourcing, corroboration, and contextualization. Sourcing means paying attention to a document's source and using source information to interpret its content. Corroboration includes comparing and contrasting the contents of multiple sources, and contextualization includes attempting to place oneself in the time and place of the document's creation and comprehending it with that context in mind. As also explained in Teaching Historical Reading and Writing with Library of Congress, argumentative writing holds the most prestigious position in this discipline. In a broader sense, historical literacy allows students to construct their own interpretations. It allows students to use evidence to persuasively defend in writing or speech their independently constructed interpretations. It improves critical literacy skills overall, and of course, it also improves historical content knowledge. When historical literacy is improved, we see better readers in general. We also see that students can produce stronger argumentative writing, and the most significant application of historical literacy in the broader sense is that it can be applied to civic online reasoning to help young people become better informed on current issues. There are several key parameters for comprehensive history education as explained in Powerful Teaching and Learning in Social Studies, but here I'm going to highlight three key parameters, which include critical media literacy, primary and secondary source usage, and developing literacies. Powerful learning in social studies would include learning critical media literacy. Critical media literacy requires rigorous evaluation of information and includes media analysis coupled with data literacy and inquiry. The second key parameter, the usage of primary and secondary sources, creates powerful social studies lessons. These sources are used to develop disciplinary literacy skills and encourages students to think critically about significant events, both past and present. They allow learners to examine sources from diverse perspectives, including those from historically marginalized and minoritized communities. Primary and secondary sources also sets the stage for questioning how the past is remembered, how to wrestle with contradictions, and how to compare and contrast multiple sources representing differing points of view. The most relatable parameter on this list for most educators is developing literacies. Social studies already builds crucial background knowledge needed for students to grow as readers and reduces opportunity gaps among students who arrive in classrooms with different levels of experiences on which to draw when making meaning of text. Powerful teaching in social studies includes teaching students thinking routines and strategies that are necessary to make sense of images and other non-text sources. It also includes allowing students to use that knowledge from text and other sources to develop claims that are supported by evidence and to communicate their ideas in written, oral, and digital presentations, which build reading, writing, speaking, and technology literacy. Now we will delve into some of the challenges presented to students within the history discipline and some practices to find success in the classroom. We'll first begin with decoding the reading of history and modeling selectivity. The main challenge here is identified as determining importance, and according to Buell's textbook, this can be defined as paring down a text to its essential ideas, differentiating key terms, themes, and information so as not to become overwhelmed by facts. A solution presented in Pace's Decoding the Disciplines includes modeling selectivity. Beginning with step 1, the idea is that you would describe history as a storytelling discipline that requires you to commit to memory the point of the story, not every detail. Teachers then have to tell students to separate the broader story, or the thesis, from the details. Students are then told to remember the story using only a few well-chosen examples to help them remember the story and to allow them to support the position if they need to. You would then, in a PowerPoint slide, show an unedited before version of a plain text or an excerpt from a primary source. In the next slide, you would present an edited after version of that same text with certain important details and phrases, either bolded, highlighted, or other formatting changes, and explain that the important details determine their edits. An example of modeling selectivity would look like displaying and providing a text that has the font size manipulated, with smaller font equating to minor or irrelevant details, and larger font showcasing necessary details for gathering the point of the story. Here is an example of what the before and after may look like. The first block of text appearing with no formatting changes, and the second text being manipulated by font size to model importance. Moving on to the second disciplinary literacy practice, I want to bring attention to some advice from historian Dr. John Hale. He explains that the major bottleneck when learning history is contextualization. How do you get students to comprehend the source and put it into context? He recommends that teachers give students 4 different perspectives and put them into conversation with each other to compare ideas. In this case, I want to bring our attention to vocabulary contextualization in a history classroom, using a practice known as Foursquare to combat the challenge. The major challenge here is refining terms. As explained in Buell's textbook, refining means to make improvement by introducing subtleties or distinctions. Refining terms can be especially effective when exploring polysemous terms, as as in words with several related meanings that are used in different contexts. They seem familiar, but they are used in technical ways in the disciplines. Foursquare is a great way to refine these terms, as it is a square divided into 4 quadrants, and each quadrant contains information that helps to refine and expand students' vocabulary knowledge. As we can observe in this example, the out-of-context definition for social Darwinism hardly serves any real purpose to a history student. The definition is vague, and there is no purpose attached to committing the key term to memory. By using a foursquare to define the term, students can unlock much more context, understanding the origin of the term, the core beliefs attached to it, and its application in a historical context. Our third challenge lies in comprehending complex disciplinary texts and bridging academic knowledge gaps. As cultural historian Rich Bodek explains, teachers need to place much less emphasis on the textbook and much more emphasis on primary sources and pulling them apart in context. Textbooks present a sanitized history that oversimplifies reality. In this case, history teachers can use close reading as an exercise to comprehend primary source documents and bridge necessary academic gaps. The major challenge here is comprehension. As explained in Buell's textbook, this can include challenges with making connections to topic and domain knowledge, textual allusions, and identifying essential questions, themes, and ideas of human experience. The close reading definition proposed by the Aspen Institute is close reading of text involves an investigation of a short piece of text, with multiple readings done over multiple instructional lessons. In this example, there are 3 phases of close reading. The first phase involves circling words you don't know the definition of. As a class, we would conclude this step by defining those words. In the second phase, a student may underline phrases that seem to encapsulate the main message. The students may write in the margins of the text, listing or explaining their significance to the general message. And in the final phase, the students would be instructed to write a short summary of the text. The final and most complex challenge in a history classroom is historical writing instruction and approaching history as evidence-based interpretation. As explained by Dr. John Hale, the recent push for DBQs is awesome. It provides students with a primary source to react to in an essay. Teaching historiography would be helpful in learning how to analyze history as a historian. We can use history as a way to shift how we think about society. Teaching social studies is a duty of civic engagement and is important because it re-engages people in the democratic processes. However, the challenge is presented by Dr. Rich Bodek, who explains that a lot of students don't know what's at stake when they're reading it. It's crucial that teachers show students that books are not just written to tell a story. They're written to make an argument. A lot of students write in a way that is one thing after another. It's crucial that teachers teach students that every paragraph they write needs to advance an argument and the story. So the conclusive challenge for students is writing evidence-based historical essays and approaching history as evidence-based interpretation. According to a comparative case study of 2 teachers' practices, we know that this aspect of disciplinary literacy involves sifting through evidence and constructing interpretation into writing. Research indicates students are unprepared for this practice, and students often focus on the literal meaning of documents. The most important takeaway is that students need to create their own positions and historical language. Best practice for achieving that includes using primary documents, finding evidence to support ideas in text, and using graphic organizers as a disciplinary literacy practice. Presented is a graphic organizer adapted from the Buell textbook that better outlines an approach to historical text as evidence-based interpretation. The graphic organizer considers perspective, claims and evidence, and general considerations I call SOAP. SOAP deeply considers the context of the source, audience, and purpose of the historical document. Lastly, here are my references. Thank you for watching!